Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1191. The Blood of Yellow Flame's Great Luck. Ji Bo Wen roared madly, his voice filled with rage and pain. He breathed heavily, opening his mouth wide and sucking deeply. The originally chaotic spiritual chi in the air suddenly became a whirlpool as they funneled into his mouth. After Xia Changtian's self-detonated, another Saint Monarch expert was going to use the same ultimate technique. Truthfully, if Ji Bo Wen decided right now to leave his body, his holy infant could definitely be able to escape, even though his 5 viscera and 6 bowel had all been badly injured, and his body had been completely incapacitated by Jun Moxie's final strike with the primal chaos purple chi, and even though blood of yellow flame was still stuck in his flesh. Because a Saint Monarch was still a Saint Monarch. As long as he was willing to escape, even the blood of yellow flame would not be able to stop him. The only person that could capture him was Jun Moxie, but right now, young Master Jun's internal and external injuries were too serious. If he wanted to leave, young Master Jun might not necessarily be able to stop him. As for Mei Shuiyan, although she had sufficient strength, she was still completely helpless against something like a holy infant. But right now, Ji Bo Wen was not intending to leave at all. Or rather, he had already given up on living right now. After seeing 40 of his brothers turned into ashes, and his close brother whom he'd known for nearly 4,000 years self-detonate, Ji Bo Wen no longer held any attachments to this life. His only wish right now was to seek revenge. Jun Moxie, you will not let your brothers die in vain. But could it be that my brothers should die for nothing in your hands? If I don't make you pay the equivalent price, I will never rest in peace. Right now, he was right in the heart of the troops of Tian Fa and the evil monarch manor. As long as he self-detonated here, even Jun Moxie himself might not be able to escape, judging by his frail state right now. In any case, he already gave up all hopes on living. So, he might as well drag all these people down to be buried with him. Whatever justice, morals, and the future of the continent could all go to hell. The heaven and earth spiritual chi surged madly, pouring into his body. As he felt the chaotic energy in his body growing, Ji Bo Wen laughed madly, in a satisfactory manner. To be able to drag so many of his enemies down with him, how could he not feel glad? The flow of spiritual chi became quicker and more urgent, until finally, there was even a whooshing sound. The spiritual chi in the air turned into a pale green color as it flew over everyone's heads. Ji Bo Wen's area had already formed into a gigantic whirlpool as the spiritual chi swirled and poured into him. Ji Bo Wen laughed maniacally. Second brother Xia. Wait for me. This brother is coming to accompany you. And I'm also bringing that bastard Jun Moxie, and those bunch of wild beasts with him to you. At that time, you can do whatever you want to them. Ha ha ha. Just as he was laughing happily, Ji Bo Wen's laughter faltered, and he opened his eyes wide with disbelief. How can this be? How can this be? His voice was filled with fear and the madness of a man who'd lost control. Right now, the amount of heaven-earth spiritual chi he'd swallowed could be said to be at least twice his own. However, there weren't any changes to his body at all. There were no signs of his body bloating up, and his meridians did not seem to be filling up at all. Even his wounds were still dripping with fresh blood. Nothing had changed. What's going on? Just what is going on? Ji Bo Wen checked his body frantically, only to realize that his life force was still continuing to flow out, without even a shred of spiritual chi from the outside. Where had all that spiritual chi he'd swallowed gone to? With an angry howl, he opened his eyes. What is this? How is this happening? He'd lost control of everything. Not just the situation, even his breathing had become chaotic. What was going on? The blood of yellow flame shone with a faint green light as it remained stuck in Ji Bo Wen's body. With this fellow sticking out of his body and blocking his meridians, Ji Bo Wen actually still dreamed of self-detonating? Wanting to pull everyone to the afterlife with him was an extremely unrealistic dream that would never happen. The blood of yellow flame could be said to have starved for quite a long time these days. It hadn't had the chance to feed on the blood essence of experts. And last time, when it had met Zhan Luanhui, a grand feast fled from its mouth, but this time, since it had burrowed itself into a Saint Monarch expert's body, it could be said to be good compensation. The blood of yellow flame was extremely happy. Although this fellow could not be compared to that old codger from before, this was still an extremely nutritious meal. Especially since this fellow completely did not even attempt to flee, making the blood of yellow flame feel rather touched. This is a good man. Ah! To lie there so obediently and let me feast to my fill. Where will I go to find another Saint Monarch as nice as this? And so, the blood of yellow flame truly treasured this meal and was enjoying it slowly and carefully, in case this good person noticed its actions. That would be too regrettable. Just as it was rejoicing internally, another great benefit appeared. This benefit was like a giant pie that fell from the heavens, right onto the blood of yellow flame's head, knocking it giddy with joy. Oh my God! This is too satisfying. Ah! Simply the best. Ah! He'd seen people who knew to be aware of their present situations, but he'd never seen anyone that was this sensible. Old fellow, this sword loves you to death. This was just too opportune. This fellow had actually opened up his heaven and earth bridge and started to madly swallow heaven-earth spiritual chi. The blood of yellow flame almost trembled and cried out with joy. Too handsome. Simply too handsome. This was exactly what it meant to have whatever one was wishing for. Even the heavens are working according to the will of it. Ah! Just when a man wants to get married, the heaven sends two ravishing beauties. Not only did it send them, these two beauties were even completely obedient as well. Not only was Ji Bo Wen's plan to self-detonate hindered, it had even benefited blood of yellow flame. No matter how much heaven-earth spiritual chi was funneled into his body, the blood of yellow flame continued to swallow every single bit, not wasting even a drop. Right now, Ji Bo Wen, this tragic Saint Monarch, had actually become a mere vessel for the blood of yellow flame. With the combined strength of Ji Bo Wen and the blood of yellow flame, the heaven-earth spiritual chi seemed to have turned insane as it poured madly into Ji Bo Wen's body. This place contained nearly 200,000 essence chi of the strange races when they died, as well as several thousand Tian Fa Xian beasts' self-detonated energy. The spiritual chi released by the tens of peak experts' self-detonation was also a horrifying amount. Originally, this was energy that nobody could absorb, and would only dissipate and return to the world after some time. But in this moment, with such conditions of perfect coincidences, it had turned into a huge lucky opportunity for blood of yellow flame. In this world, apart from Jun Moxie, no one would know or even guessed that such a sword existed in this world. A sword that could absorb the essence blood of others, absorb their cultivation, kill their souls, their life, to continue to grow stronger. The reason for this sword's uniqueness was entirely because of Jun Moxie experimenting repeatedly with his power of gold, fusing every good material he saw with it. Normal swords, no matter how precious, would only go through a few rounds of refining. But Jun Moxie's blood of yellow flame had been refined over 1,000 times. Such a method that disregarded cost and so much continuous refining had produced a completely peerless freak of a sword. To experts who were planning to self-detonate, what was the difference of a sword sticking in their body? Any expert that had the ability to self-detonate would be able to wield terrifying amounts of energy. What difference was a mere sword going to make? After the self-detonation, even the most magical sword would not be able to survive. It was completely insignificant. So, Ji Bo-wen naturally did not place this sword in his heart. He was going to die anyway. So before he died, he might as well destroy this sword with him. If he could destroy Jun Moxie's treasured weapon, it would be an additional gain. But who would have thought that blood of yellow flame would actually be such a shocking existence? It was definitely the most magical item that the Xian continent had ever seen from the time that it was formed. By the time Ji Bo-wen discovered that something was off, a third of all the heaven-earth spiritual qi in the area had already flowed into the sword through his body as a medium. Ji Bo-wen finally lost hope completely. As a Saint Monarch expert, he'd actually fallen into such a state where he couldn't even self-detonate. This was the greatest tragedy in the world. Ji Bo-wen spat out several mouthfuls of blood repeatedly out of the desperation in his heart, now that his energy was completely exhausted. He also finally gave up on the idea of self-detonating. Although he couldn't determine what was going on, but he was sure that there must be something wrong with this sword in his body. It must be one of the main culprits that was sucking the heaven-earth spiritual qi in his body away. And so, he disregarded everything to stop the process. Not wanting the blood of yellow flame to get the benefit, but who would have thought that he would suffer another heavy blow? Ji Bo-wen's action of stopping the self-detonation sequence had greatly angered the old master. Lord Sword Blood of Yellow Flame. Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1192. It's over? No. This dang old fellow is already getting satisfied after being praised a little bit. Did you think that this kind of opportunity is easy for this daddy to meet? How can you stop just because you want to? Truly unbearable. Unable to bear the anger and unable to absorb the energy, it naturally began to crazily absorb Ji Bo-wen's life force and soul energy instead. Feck. How dare you spoil this old master's plans? This Lord's sword will destroy your spirit. Ji Bo-wen naturally understood his own body the best. As he felt his energy draining away rapidly, he instantly turned green and roared in his mind, "Abandon the body." After that, he revolved his cultivation rapidly and tried to form a holy infant, aiming to live and exact revenge another day. However, he discovered to his despair that his own body was no longer under his own control anymore. That terrifying sword had already stabbed into the position of his dantian at an unknown time and pierced through his holy infant, with an indescribably fast speed. It was absorbing his life essence and soul energy. The holy infant was an existence that didn't have any forms and was practically impossible to be harmed by any physical thing, but right now, it was actually pierced through like skewed meat, without any abilities to escape. Ji Bo-wen had the opportunity to escape earlier, but hadn't done so. Now that he wanted to do that, he could no longer escape. The reason for this peculiar situation was simple. The blood of yellow flame's abilities had far surpassed Ji Bo-wen's after it had absorbed so much heaven-earth spiritual qi. Furthermore, all that energy had passed through Ji Bo-wen's body, and the attributes of that energy was practically the same, with the blood of yellow flame's current strength. Ji Bo-wen could only be sucked dry without being able to move a single finger. Any resistance was pointless at this time. And so, under everyone's gaping eyes, an extremely strange scene played out. Ji Bo-wen's body rose into the air, staying fixedly there for a moment, before deflating with a speed visible to the naked eye. quickly turning into a dried corpse. Then, it continued to shrink until finally, with a slight poof sound, it was as if someone had accidentally let out a silent fart, and the entire body completely disappeared into thin air. The heaven-earth spiritual chi also finally stopped churning chaotically. Only a single sword, gleaming with a cold light, hung in the air. This shocking development caused everyone to be completely dumbstruck. What's happening? A moment ago, they clearly saw that Ji Bo Wen was preparing to self-detonate. No, it should be that he had already begun the process of self-detonation. And everybody had even escaped several hundred zhang away to avoid it, but who would have thought that this self-detonation of a Saint Monarch expert would be weaker than a silent fart. At the very least, the latter would still leave a bad smell. What the hell was this? Ah! Just as everyone was still staring uncertainty at the scene before their eyes, the sword in the sky suddenly trembled and cried aloud. Everyone felt as if they were in a dream. That sword's cry was actually extremely human-like. It sounded like it was extremely satisfied. Such a feeling was extremely magical. A sword was actually able to display such human-like emotion. Also, that sword's cry even had a sense of how a human would burp in satisfaction after eating a good meal. Following that, this sword shot into the sky and an incomparably dazzling sword light burst out from it, as if it were a pillar supporting the heavens and earth. The sword light was as thick as a house, and several hundred zhang long. Far off, a large hole was punched through a mountain. After that, this sword finally flew down and returned to Jun Moxie's hand, twirling around him like a spoilt little child. Then, it just disappeared abruptly, completely without a trace. After eating to its fill, it naturally needed to go and digest properly. That was the case for a human or a sword. A sharp glint flashed across Jun Moxie's eyes. Who would have thought that the blood of yellow flame would have benefited so greatly this time? No wonder it could not wait to dive into the Hongjun Pagoda to digest. The amount of energy it had absorbed was undoubtedly huge. And the quality of the energy was not bad as well. Of course, this not bad was also relative compared to the energy in the blood of yellow flame's body. There was still some difference. There was even less need to compare it to the pure energy in the Hongjun Pagoda. So, it was still necessary to continue refining the newly absorbed energy, ridding the impurities in order to turn it into the most perfect energy. And doing this in the Hongjun Pagoda would greatly shorten this process. This was the first time the blood of yellow flame had entered the Hongjun Pagoda on its own initiative from the time it had formed its sword spirit. Before this, it would behave like a playful child once it came out, extremely unwilling to return without coaxing. At this time, the battle results were clear. The 3 Saint Venerables and 2 Saint Emperors who'd luckily avoided being frozen by the Xian ice and burned to ashes were all standing dumbly by the side, as thought their souls had already fled from their bodies, from start to end. They had never moved at all. Gu Han's face was extremely complicated as he led everyone and walked over. Jun Moxie stood up slowly. His face as white as a sheet of paper, his 5 viscera and 6 bowels ached as if they'd been torn apart, and his head felt as if it was being stabbed by countless tiny little knives. All his meridians felt as if they were about to collapse completely. His bones seemed to be on fire. But Jun Moxie's face was still as calm and emotionless as before. His back was straight, and he looked refined as a painting. Senior Gu, you don't look too good. Ah, the grand battle is before us. We should have a good rest first. Senior Gu's strength could be said to be the top in Xian, and it would be a great detriment to our continent's side if you cannot participate due to sickness. Jun Moxie said with a faint smile. Doesn't look too good. He had watched 42 of his brothers being killed in front of him, and he could not stop the tragedy at all. How would Gu Han's expression be good right now? And what dog shut top in Xian was that? If he was truly the top in Xian, would this brat dare to be so arrogant? As for resting, where would he have the mood to rest right now? Not to mention that he wasn't sick. Even if he was sick, he must still endure. Even if he had to die, he must only do so in the decisive war against the strange races. Truthfully, the respect that Jun Moxie held towards Gu Han was indeed from his heart, from that sunken look on his face and that bloodied lip from clenching his teeth too hard. It was easy to see, how would Gu Han not feel anything about those brothers of his? He'd known them for hundreds of years as well. He cared about them, and he cared very deeply about them. However, for the sake of the big picture, Gu Han still chose to watch helplessly by the side. This was not cowardice, it was a rare and difficult courage. The pain and struggle in Gu Han's heart was definitely not inferior to Xia Changtian. In fact, it might be even more fervent. At least, Xia Changtian still had an outlet to vent his feelings, saying whatever he wanted to say and do what he wanted to do, but Gu Han could only bury everything into his heart and force a smile onto his face. Ultimately, it was his brothers who'd done wrong first, so they needed to bear responsibility. Against Jun Moxie's power, for the sake of the continent, for the sake of the people, Gu Han could only close his eyes and do nothing. Jun Moxie had already decided long ago that if Gu Han and the three Holy Lands truly stepped out to obstruct him and protect their own people, he would immediately take his troops and return to Tianfa Forest without turning back. What kind of joke would that be? Could it be that this daddy is mission-bound to protect the continent? If I can't even protect my brothers, how will I talk about protecting the whole world? Bullshit. The good of the world? Even more bullshit. Is this young master so bored as to use the lives of my brothers to crack jokes? Tianfa has already given too much to this continent. Still, Gu Han had not disappointed Jun Moxie again. Manor Lord Jun. It's excessive. Too excessive. Your methods were too excessive. Gu Han seemed to have aged 100 years in a mere instant. His wrinkles, the white hair on his head, suddenly grew much more pronounced. His previous graceful and elegant look had disappeared and he seemed like a completely different person. Excessive? Was it truly too excessive? Jun Moxie smiled in a strange way. No. It is still not sufficient. He pointed at the remaining 5 people. Aren't those people still not dead? The murderers had been brought to justice. But hadn't those accomplices still not given me an account yet? Manor Lord Jun. Could it be that you will only be happy once you've killed them all? Gu Han's beard flew up in rage as he stared at Jun Moxie. Jun Moxie. Can't you spare just a bit of thought for the upcoming grand battle? And save us a little more strength? Those words already bordered on pleading. Hearing that, the rage in Jun Moxie's heart rose again. Now you know how to think about the upcoming grand battle? Then why didn't that Xia Changtian think about this earlier? If he'd lent his assistance, would the Eagle tribe suffer such heavy losses? Would the 8 Saint Venerable Seniors all perish? Would Eagle King have had to sacrifice himself? But Jun Moxie stared silently back at Gu Han, none of them speaking. Gu Han's eyes were filled with pain and a trace of imploration. Jun Moxie's heart moved, and he finally sighed lightly. Since the main culprits have already died, I don't have the interest to tangle around with small characters right now. I'll let them off temporarily, but after the grand battle, these 5 must still give me an account. Such selfish and black-hearted behaviors cannot be condoned no matter what. Saying that, he turned around swiftly and snorted. I will not kill them for now. But if they are still alive after the battle, there are 2 choices. First, Come before the graves of my brothers and take their own lives as atonement. Second, come before the graves of my brothers and kowtow to apologize. Of course, they can choose to escape into the deep mountains and gamble on whether or not they will be able to escape my pursuit. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1193. You guys are the real reason for the continent's doom. There's no need for the trouble. One Saint Venerable glared at Jun Moxie hatefully. Our brothers that we've spent thousands of years with have already died, that we are not ones who are attached to life. The reason why we have yet to end ourselves is merely because we wish to be able to kill a few more strange race scum in this great battle. That's all. All of us have decided to sacrifice ourselves in the battle this time, Jun Moxie. Let us settle our debt in the next life. Fine. It is also one of your options. Jun Moxie said coldly. If you really have a next life, I'll definitely keep you company. The five of them scoffed coldly and turned around. They sat down cross-legged beside that giant pit and began to meditate. Not a single one of them looked at Gu Han, or even at any of their fellow soldiers of the past. Only 5 lonely individuals, neither part of Tian Fa nor the Holy Lands. Not part of the world, the country, anyone or even themselves. Manor Lord Jun, you managed to stand up for your brothers this time. But did you consider how we are going to fight the battle against the strange races after losing so many experts in this internal strife? Gu Han sighed and he shook his head. The more he thought about it, the heavier his heart weighed. How to fight? Just fight the way we're supposed to fight. Jun Moxie said nonchalantly. We can't possibly just stretch our necks out for them, right? You. Gu Han stomped in foot, chuckling from anger. Jun Moxie, did you know that if we lose this battle, your reckless behavior today will definitely play a big part in it? When that time comes, you'll be the person who doomed mankind. Don't tell me you really don't care about that. Gu Han regretted that he truly regretted. When so many people stepped out just now, causing the conflict to completely worsen, Gu Han already knew that there was no way to salvage this matter, but he still harbored a tiny hope that the majority will not be reproached. Even with Jun Moxie's current prowess, it was not possible for him to completely deal with so many experts completely, even if Jun Moxie had a trump card. Before righteousness, Jun Moxie would have greater considerations and change his mind. When they fought for a while and vented all his anger, he would go and dissuade them. By then, Xia Changtian and Ji Bo Wen would recognize that Jun Moxie was a force to be reckoned, and they would indeed need each other's strength for the great battle. He believed that after both parties considered the situation, they'd give him the face and call a temporary truce, even if they settle their scores after the battle. It'd still be better than draining themselves internally. But Gu Han never expected that Jun Moxie would start with such an imposing attack, using his trump card that gave no chances at all. He barely had time to blink. 40 out of the group of almost 50 had fallen into an impasse that was impossible to escape. Their life and death were all at the Jun Moxie's fingertips. And Xia Changtian began to fight Jun Moxie to death with less than 3 sentences exchanged. And it didn't even take long before he was forced to self-detonate. And Ji Bo Wen went berserk to seek revenge, attempting to harm the entire Tian Fa camp, and ultimately turned into a wisp of smoke. Everything was too much for the eyes. Everything had happened too quickly. Gu Han had not even thought of a good excuse to stop them. The dust had already settled. Until the end, he only saw Ji Bo Wen's body shriveling before disappearing completely. Gu Han could only say that his heart was in extreme agony. The way Jun Moxie handled matters was too tyrannical, too merciless. not even giving anyone time to think. When he realized it, everything was over. Even if all the responsibilities fall on my head, so what? Even if we are truly defeated, so what? The title of a sinner, have I ever cared about it? Jun Moxie chuckled indifferently. Even if it is wrong, so what? When I, Jun Moxie, set my mind on something, I never care what is right or wrong. My only question if I should or shouldn't. If I would feel guilty. Guhan was so furious that his beard trembled. He chided. Your way of handling things completely does not take the bigger picture into consideration. Think of the greater picture. Thinking of the greater picture will only result in grievances to be suffered. That is too tiring and too foolish. Tia Fa has always been thinking of the greater picture. That's why the moment the pillar of heaven's mountain collapsed, they rushed here immediately, sacrificing themselves without hesitation to hold the strange races back. But what did they get? Only allies who watched on coldly, making cynical talk, not even putting their sacrifice and contributions on their minds. Was Xia Changtian very considerate of the bigger picture? I'm bitterly disappointed by the matter today. Jun Moxie shook his head and said indifferently. I have always been an extreme person. I am also not one who will bother about the bigger picture or whatever. I only know that even if I can endure the grievance, my brothers must not suffer any grievances because of me. If my brothers suffer grievances and was set up by someone, I must make the person pay. No matter what the price is, I will make them pay. If someone hurts my finger, I must break their arm. That is all. I am not a successful leader and also not a suitable judge. I'm just a wanderer who does what he wants. I only seek a clear conscience. Jun Moxie continued to chuckle apathetically. It is not that my brothers cannot die, since they came to this battlefield. They already made the preparations to die. But that does not mean that they can die because of someone else. Dying on the battlefield, I have nothing to say, and will feel proud of my brothers. But the problem now is that they could have not died. But because of their supposed ally, they sacrificed themselves. So, I want revenge. I must get this justice. I will never hesitate when it comes to things that I should do, just like the battle this time. I could have chosen not to come. I believe that with one command of mine, not a single person from Tianfa or the evil monarch manor will appear here, but I still came. Massacres will always come with sacrifices. But it doesn't matter. My brothers and I have always been clear of this. Since we came here, we were prepared to not make it back alive. He raised his head and looked at Guhan. Even if we died in the most tragic way, we will have no complaints. But if we were to die in such an obscure manner, no can do. Not a single subordinate from Tianfa or the evil monarch manor will fear any sort of powerful enemy, but they will fear comrades and allies that stab them in the back. Since people from the Holy Land caused my brothers to die for such a dubious reason, then I must seek justice. As to what sort of outcome will result from this justice, I never considered it, because there is no need for consideration. Too much considerations will only hinder your actions. It's tiresome. Jun Moxie flashed a wide grin. Living more simplistically. Like me. How great is that? Guhan was speechless. Genuinely feeling helpless to his core. Meeting someone like Jun Moxie, no matter what sort of great reasons, it would not be convince him. No matter how or what you do, he had his own way of doing things. You have thousands of reasons. I have a fixed rule. I do as I pleased. That was all. Directly ignoring the consideration of all the lives of the world. What else could you hope for him to consider? Someone who only cared about the smaller righteousness. What else could you say? By your logic, If everyone was like you, then what would happen to this world? If I protected my own brothers like you, then what would happen? Gu Han was a little frustrated with anger. Then, who will protect this continent? Who will be responsible for mankind? Who asked you to be responsible? Did anyone ask you to be responsible? Jun Moxie rolled his eyes. Ridiculous. Did anyone really kneel down and beg for you to protect this continent? I'll just tell you. That's none of your business. Look at how you've pampered all these people. All of them don't know how to be grateful. And don't think about showing gratitude. And you still fight for them? Fight for Fek? You. Gu Han was so angered he couldn't speak. It had been thousands of years since he was so angered to this point. What about me? As to the part you say, what will happen if you protect your brothers like me? What will happen? I really do not know about this. How would I know about something that had never happened before? But we will know naturally after we fight. Gu Han felt the urge to vomit blood. This was clearly a fallacious argument. He really didn't know what sort of foolish brain was Jun Moxie using to say it. We will know after we fight it out. Wasn't this just complete bullshit? If they could really fight it out, wouldn't they be joining hands to gift themselves to the strange races? It was completely absurd. Watching how furious Gu Han was, Jun Moxie suddenly burst into laughter. Do you find my words unpleasant to hear? Jun Moxie said mockingly. I can tell you that if you wish to unite the hearts of the people to fight against the enemy, then you must allow them to suffer some hardship for it to be meaningful. Those at the back do not know anything. The entire continent is in celebration. But only you guys were protecting the continent for 10,000 years. Let's not even talk about whether it was benevolent of you. If you say that you protected the continent, will those people who had never seen the strange races believe you? No. They will only think you are all a bunch of liars. Humans will only know how to retaliate after they've received a certain amount of pressure. They will only unite as one out of their own will when they've received enough repression. Jun Moxie said apathetically. And the three holy land are the same. Selfish and full of yourselves. Like those you are defending. When the strange races came waging war, you are able to just gawk and watch the downfall of your allies. Using your comrades as cannon fodder. Ha! Senior Gu. Don't blame me for not mincing my words. Even if the three holy lands are not ruined in this battle, you will be destroyed by this sooner or later one day. For 10,000 years. You silently guarded pillar of heaven's mountains. This sort of deserted place, silently sacrificing. It sounds very magnanimous, but don't you forget that all you've done is improve the strength of three holy lands. While everyone else on the continent doesn't feel the slightest bit of danger. So they don't make much improvement. There are an even greater number of people who don't even know of the existence of the strange races. But what about the strange races? Jun Moxie laughed mockingly. I recall that you mentioned before that you rotate your saints and saint emperors for training to strengthen them, but had you never considered that while you are training your soldiers? Similarly, you've helped the strange races strengthen their soldiers for 10,000 years. Did you think of what is the difference between the two? Gu Han suddenly felt as if he was struck by lightning. His perspiration poured out that he was completely stunned. His heart began to throb intensively. The strange races live in bitter and harsh conditions, but regardless of adults or children, their mission is to invade the continent. Did you see the corpses of the strange races on the battlefield today? There were a large portion of them that were donned in rags. Barely dressed properly. It is obvious that they are the weakest forces on the strange races, but I'll tell you. Their weakest are at least the level of a peak-level Earth Xian. A large portion of them are Sky Xians. 20,000 Sky Xians. Can you imagine it? Gu Han continued to stand in shock. As if he did not hear what Jun Moxie said. Indeed. This time we managed to kill off almost 20,000 of them. It is a glorious feat. But this is the strength the strange races managed to gather in half a day. Jun Moxie scoffed coldly. I dare ask Senior Gu, how many sky xians do we have in the entire continent? How much preparation time do you need to gather a 20,000 sky xian army? Let's not talk about half a day like the strange races. If I gave you a month, would you be able to do it? Gu Han's face turned red before turning entirely pale. Perhaps we are about the same in terms of higher level experts, but when it comes to those of lower levels, we are far from it. In all the past war for seizing the heavens, it had always been a small battle and not a large-scale one. But now, the pillar of heaven's mountains has collapsed. The strange race's army will be uninhibited. Everything is ultimately caused by the three holy lands. Jun Moxie said mercilessly. Because those you are protecting do not feel any pressure. They will not work hard to cultivate. So the Xian continent may be big. But it is lacking in its own experts. Even if there are some, when one finally appears, they're immediately swept away by the three holy lands, using fame and reputation to make them join you. But after they've joined, how many of them became small fries? And how many people stopped working hard because of this? And all these people are the seeds of various places, hoping to be able to teach and guide countless outstanding disciples to improve the strength of the continent, but they are all locked away in the deep mountains by you guys. In the long run, while the strange races all became soldiers, the people of the continent were merely a bunch of lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Although there were hundreds, or thousands of the strange races, that was countless of sky xians and earth xians. Jun Moxie said incisively. And this is the result of your help in training their soldiers. Everyone turned silent, carefully considering Jun Moxie's words. The three holy lands has taken the war for seizing the heavens as your eternal glory. An exclusive glory that only belonged to you. You would rather taste loneliness in the deep mountains to wait for the next glory your sacrifice will bring than be willing to spread more seeds in the continent. You treated this war as glory, your personal glory, and refused to condone bath in your limelight. Even if they are genuinely helping out of good intentions, you seek to eradicate all future threats from them. TNFA is the best example. And the result of this is the continent weakening while the strange races get stronger and stronger. TNFA had always helped you obtain victory in the war for seizing the heavens for the sake of righteousness, but you all see it as them snatching and sharing your glory. And feel uncomfortable because of it. And for the sake of ensuring your place as a saint. You even try to eliminate your own ally. Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1194. Hello there. Gorgeous. You tell me, is everything ridiculous? Jun Moxie scanned their faces with a cold gaze. Today, you framed your ally, causing 5,000 Saint Emperors to fight to their deaths in 6 hours. I demand for justice. But I've become the person who doomed the continent. Aside from laying the blame, can the three holy lands have some shame? Everyone lowered their heads in embarrassment. Was what Jun Moxie said unreasonable? No. Whatever Jun Moxie said made complete sense. It was their desire to be revered that had led the three holy lands to fall into this state. If we ultimately lose this war, catastrophe will befall upon mankind, then, who is the one who played the biggest part in causing all of this? Jun Moxie sent the question back. Who is the main culprit that caused the strange races to invade the Xian continent? Who is the one who caused the continent to become so weak? Is it me? If it's not me, then who is it exactly? It is not you. It is us. Gu Han's face instantly turned languid. He let out a deep sigh. We are the ones who doomed the continent. His incisive gaze had suddenly turned lifeless. He looked into the skies and laughed bleakly. Turns out, the Holy Lands that had did their utmost to protect the peace of the continent for 10,000 years are the ones that sent it to its doom. How ironic is this? It was not only Gu Han, even Imo Wu Dao and the rest appeared completely stunned. As if they were shocked out of their wits by Jun Moxie's earth-shattering argument, they remained rooted to their spot in a daze, losing their usual vigor on their faces. As it turned out, the nameless heroes who thought they were protecting the Xian continent had another identity. Training for the strange races. Allowing those grotesque things to become more powerful. Leading to the defeat of the Xian continent. Could it be that for the past 10,000 years, we were wrong? Gu Han sighed. His voice so inaudible that even he couldn't hear it himself. Then, he turned and walked away slowly, towards somewhere isolated, traveling far away, step by step, each one heavy and slow, until he arrived at a slightly empty area far away. He sat down cross-legged, remaining motionless. Mei Shuayan furrowed her brows, mulling over what Jun Moxie had said earlier. Were Jun Moxie's words correct? Of course they were. But it wasn't absolutely right. It was not entirely correct. For the 10,000 years, the three Holy Lands had wholeheartedly and devotedly protected mankind and the Xian continent silently. This contribution was impossible to be erased. Even if it was flawed, it couldn't be denied by anyone. But the three Holy Lands valued this contribution and glory too much, using all sorts of methods to independently enjoy this special glory. This ultimately led to the overall weakening of the Xian continent. When one overrated their own worth, they will become arrogant. For the sake of ensuring their otherworldly status for eternity, the three Holy Lands used all sorts of methods to weaken other forces so that no force would be able to share their achievements. In fact, aside from the three Holy Lands and Tianfa, the Xian continent had never tasted any powerful forces rising in all of its history, because the three Holy Lands would not allow any more powerful forces to rise, eliminating every single one of them. The only reason why Tianfa managed to escape this fate was merely because they were not human. They would never be able to receive the special honor that three Holy Lands got for protecting mankind until Jun Moxie's appearance. Don't overthink it. You're only making things hard for yourself. Jun Moxie looked at her and said, how could the right and wrong of contributions and errors be so easily determined? It has never been decided by a single person. The achievements and crimes of 1,000 years are merely passing smoke. It is all merely a reason humans give themselves and delude themselves to do something. Mei Shuayan's body jerked, gazing at him, her feelings a whirl. I overexerted too much in the battle earlier and will need to rest for a while, just in case. Jun Moxie said. Hold on to this sword. If any strange races come to attack, you only need to toss it out. I believe it will definitely be able to handle a big part of the crisis. With a turn of his hands, the blood of yellow flame that was glowing radiantly instantly appeared in Jun Moxie's palm. It let out a soft cry and automatically flew into Mei Shuayan's hand, suddenly sticking out horizontally, displaying a powerful air. Mei Shuayan suddenly had an extremely bizarre sensation in this instant. It was as if this sword was greeting her. And even its voice appeared in her head. Hey, gorgeous. How are you? Mei Shuayan was sure that no one made a single sound, but that voice, or perhaps feeling, was directed right into her mind, making her feel that this was not an auditory hallucination. Mei Shuayan was shocked, looking at this sword incredulously. No need to stare so much. Gorgeous. It is really me. The glow radiating from the sword began to twinkle, as if a playful child was winking its eyes, and Mei Shuayan clearly felt this. This shock was not small. She felt her hand going weak, practically dropping the sword. She hurriedly turned to look at Jun Moxie, only to realize that Jun Moxie had already vanished without her noticing. Right now, after gobbling so much heaven-earth spiritual qi and all the xian qi of a saint monarch, the blood of yellow flame had completely surpassed Jun Moxie in terms of strength. Of course, this was referring to the Jun Moxie without all his other divine skills. Otherwise, as long as young Master Jun activated the power of the 5 elements, he could still easily control the blood of yellow flame. But this sort of control was only limited to Jun Moxie, with the blood of yellow flame's current strength. Experts who were 3rd level Saint Monarch and below were not his match. Even if Gu Han used all his might to vie with the blood of yellow flame, it would not be easy for him to gain any advantage. If he was careless, he may die under blood of yellow flame, with him protecting Mei Shuayan and the rest. Naturally, Jun Moxie was very assured. So with no greater delays, he promptly entered the Hongjun Pagoda to treat his injuries. Recovering in the shortest time is the priority. Mei Shuayan had seen the blood of yellow flame numerous times when she was with Jun Moxie. She was extremely familiar with this sword, but she had never imagined that this sword could be so demonic to this extent. Is this still a sword? It's a spirit. A sword spirit. A demonic sword. Aya, gorgeous lady. Although this old sword is handsome, attractive, elegant, and well-loved, and make others fall in love at first sight very easily, is too devastatingly beautiful and mesmerizing, there's no need for you to be this excited. The blood of yellow flame had originally wanted to refer to himself as this old master, but felt that was a little inappropriate to refer to himself as that in front of a divine beauty, and this beauty had a relationship with his own master. Behaving arrogantly would have serious consequences. So he very tactfully changed his self-addressment. It is really you talking? I meant to say, it is you who is sharing the connection in my mind? Mei Shuayan couldn't help but asked again to confirm, widening her eyes. AI. The blood of yellow flame bemoaned, gorgeous elder sister. How can you say that? We are old acquaintances already, we've even met more than twice. You are behaving so unfamiliarly with this sword. Acting as if you do not know me. This is too mean, this sword is truly hurt. After saying this, it flipped out of Mei Shuayan's hand before flying about, releasing a bunch of dazzling sword light that formed the shape of a giant lotus flower. The petals of the lotus flower slowly bloomed enchantingly. It was a feast for the eyes. But it was a certain sword's actions to express his frustration from being disregarded. Then, a certain sword suddenly came dropping down with a whoosh, its tip pointing straight down as it stood upright in Mei Shuayan's palm. Yet Mei Shuayan did not feel the slightest pain with the sharpness of the blood of yellow flame suddenly stabbing onto her hand. This scenario, in the eyes of others, appeared to be Mei Shuayan using Jun Moxie's sword and putting up a brilliant, exciting performance. Everyone couldn't help but exclaim, this sort of sword technique is truly incomparable. You can't help but admit inferior to it. Gorgeous elder sister. Do you believe me this time? Ha ha ha. Kakik. The blood of yellow flame cackled gleefully, mimicking Jun Moxie's laughter. He was only familiar with young Master Jun, so even if he wished to mimic anyone else, he couldn't. Mei Shuayan was finally sure and believed it, although she had acknowledged it logically. She was still feeling a little iffy emotionally. As if she was having a dream, she couldn't help but praise. You really sound like Moxie. I really thought it was Moxie teasing me just now. Naturally, her voice was extremely soft. Otherwise, if anyone else were to hear it, they might think that this Lord of Tianfa had gone insane. Of course. If I cannot mimic that scoundrel's voice, then I'd really have been abused by him in vain. You don't know. Back then, aside from glee in his voice, the blood of yellow flame began to sob as he spoke. N. Mo Xia abused you ah? Mei Shui Yan was shocked. AI. It is truly a horrible memory. It is all full of blood and tears. Blood of yellow flame sobbed. Hammer. By hammer. Really paring away at me ah. Mei Shui Yan rolled her eyes. Ah. So this is your so-called abuse ah? You're a sword for goodness sake. If you're not hammered away, hammer by hammer, how to refine you ah? How will you be forged? But she still comforted him. He did that because it was for your own good. Boo-hoo. I know. I understand. But it really hurts ah. I'm not faking the pain ah. Blood of yellow flame sobbed mournfully. Mei Shui Yan was completely speechless. This sword clearly changes moods very quickly. 1 moment ago it was still crying away. Now, it was suddenly all happy and excited. N. Gorgeous. How about this? I'll carry you. Let's go for a spin. Carry me? For a spin? Mei Shui Yan was feeling a little faint. How to carry? What spin? No matter how humanized blood of yellow flame was, it was ultimately still a sword, if she really rode on it. Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1195. This is a matter of character. Mei Shui Yan shuddered from her imagination. The most important thing was that it was too dangerous. There was nothing in the world that the blood of yellow flame's sharpness could not cut. Perhaps I did not make myself clear earlier. It should be. You stand on me and I'll bring you for a spin. Let's fly over to the mountains for a stroll. Maybe we can slay a few more Saint Venerable or Saint Monarchs from the strange races for some nourishment. This is a great thing that kills 2 birds with 1 stone. You'll be willing, right? Satisfied? Happy? Pleased? What? No way. Mei Shui Yan was rudely shocked. Like master. Like sword, like owner. Like dog, this saying was absolutely accurate. This blood of yellow flame was as brazen as Jun Moxie. No. Even young Master Jun didn't dare to be this brazen ah. To speak of killing some Saint Venerables or Saint Monarchs for some nourishment? What? What is this? There are no such means of nourishing in this way. Besides, going to the mountains, that's their territory. The only outcome of recklessly barging over will only become nourishment for them. Fret not. Fret not. There's no problem. I am here. I will do everything. I guarantee that you will go over poised and elegant, and return with a majestic air. The blood of yellow flame encouraged and egged her on with its silver tongue. This fellow had been usually restrained by Jun Moxie and finally got a chance to come out on its own without Jun Moxie around. What a great opportunity this was ah. How can he miss it? No. There is no room for discussions on this matter. Mei Shui Yan rejected flatly. You don't have to say any more. Then she grabbed the sword by its hilt and headed back to the army. Ayaya. Gorgeous sister. Let's talk it out again. I am really powerful. You don't know ah. There's no one in this world that can really withstand a blow from this sword. The blood of yellow flame continued to convince her incessantly. But Mei Shui Yan turned a deaf ear to it all, allowing this tireless fellow to rattle away in her conscience. She must not agree to it no matter how convincing he was. Long crane. Immediately deploy the cranes. 10 men in each troop. To set up camps every 1,000 li. Keep an eye on the boundaries of the entire pillar of heaven's mountains. Observe every single move on the strange race's side the moment there are any changes. Send the warning signal by releasing a cry. Mei Shuayan immediately made the arrangements without pause. Yes. Crane King stood up and received the orders before heading out in big strides. Wait. Pick the Xian crane who flies the fastest to head back the way we came from to urge Lion King and the rest to hurry. They must get here to join us as quickly as possible. Yes. Also, send a Xian crane to hurry back into the continent, contact the Dongfang family, Xikong family, Duanmu family, and Blizzard Silver City for them to quickly spread news of the strange race's invasion into the continent, as well as the treacherous situation of the war for seizing the heavens. Immediately summon all the Sky Xians and above in Xian to come forth and aid in the battle. And send my order to Tian Fa Forest for all the Xian beasts that have already reached 9th level to hurry over immediately. All of them. Then, Mei Shuayan raised her voice and said in the direction of the 3 holy lands. Mo Wu Dao. Send a few men to hurry back with my brothers to inform those subsidiary families belonging to the 3 holy lands to send all their experts who are Sky Xians and above to hurry and join the battle. I will immediately arrange for it. Mo Wu Dao did not dare to have any delays on this matter, and did not have the slightest hesitation that he immediately sent a few men over to Tian Fa's side. Bear King, Tiger King, immediately gather all your men to be ready for battle. No matter how the situation is, the 2 of you shall lead your men and take on the enemy immediately. Yes, big sis. Both the kings responded loudly. Solitary Eagle, Feng Wan Yun, please bring your subordinates from the evil Monarch Manor to cooperate with Tiger King and Bear King. Yes. Both of them quickly responded with a serious look on their faces. Bailey Luo Yun, Leng Ao. I will not give you any specific directions. Both of you shall lead your men to move freely from this moment on. The top priority is to slay the strange races. With a command, the Xian cranes rose into the air and flapped their wings, departing far away and disappearing into the clouds. I hope it's not too late. Mei Shuayan looked at the fading figures of the Xian cranes in the air, a worrisome look on her face as she mumbled to herself. With Mei Shuayan's series of orders, the atmosphere began to turn heavy and turbulent. What were those wicked, grotesque conjoined scoundrels planning on the other side? There was only one thing that was for sure: those disgusting scoundrels were definitely assembling their forces. And also making arrangements. They were only waiting that when the time was ripe, they would charge over and attack crazily. When that time came, they would already have orderly formations and not charge in that same disorganized manner earlier. It would definitely be a shockingly huge battle. Mei Shuayan looked at her brothers and countless Tianfa warriors before her reluctantly. When the time came, how many brothers would lay to eternal rest on this piece of land? Mei Shuayan's heart wrenched in pain with this thought. If there were no strange races in this world, how wonderful would that be? In another realm, Jun Moxie sat cross-legged in the Hongjun Pagoda. Primal chaos purple qi surging into his body like a tsunami, cleansing his body and meridians, treating his injuries. When he first came in, Jun Moxie immediately gobbled a bunch of 7-colored holy fruit and a piece of exquisite lotus. Then, in the time his injuries began to recover, he decisively swallowed a drop of golden jade fluid. The battle is right before us, that we are currently not strong enough. I absolutely have to boost our strength. Otherwise, everything of this war bodes ill. Jun Moxie decided that when he came out, he would boost the strength of the Tianfa warriors again using spirit vein shards. Even if they die from the heavenly tribulation, it is still better than dying here. The priority is dealing with the impending war. 3 days passed in a blink. There were absolutely no movements on the strange race's side. It was so unexpectedly quiet that even the three Holy Lands found it odd. Why is this bunch of scoundrels so capable of suppressing themselves this time? The Xian cranes who were in charge of being on the alert also did not send any warning signals. After 3 days of thorough eruption, the volcanoes more or less came to a cease. The temperature was beginning to drop rapidly. Although it was still unbearably hot, it was a lot better compared to previous days. And young Master Jun also came out of his meditation last night. In these 3 days, everyone from the 3 Holy Lands was resting to conserve their strength and did not come to disturb. Both minding their own business, not interacting at all. It seemed as if everyone had turned mute these few days, even if there was something that needed to be told. They did it through voice transmission instead of meeting face to face. Since it'll be awkward if we met, we might as well not meet anymore, perhaps. We will save a lot of unnecessary trouble in this way. There was only silence. Both sides seemed to be waiting for that moment to erupt gloriously. In fact, until Jun Moxie revealed himself again, there was no change to this silent situation. But when young Master Jun just came out, there was instantly countless thunder and lightning. The answer was obvious that a lightning tribulation was about to descend. Under the potent effects of the 7-colored holy fruit, exquisite lotus, and golden jade fluid, young Master Jun's cultivation advanced significantly again, and he instantly attained the realm of a peak 4th-level Saint Monarch. It was not because Jun Moxie himself was amazing, but because he had truly been too extravagant. The golden jade fluid used on young Master Jun himself could refine enough pills to raise 1,000-men Sky Xian army all to the realm of Spirit Xian. With the advancement in strength came the arrival of a lightning tribulation. Young Master Jun's tribulation situation instantly turned into a performance, to the point where even Gu Han, who had been sitting still for the past couple of days, came forth and watched. It was too ridiculous. It was truly too ridiculous. The countless audience watching Jun Moxie go through his tribulation couldn't help but have the urge to die. In this world, to think there's someone who goes through their tribulation while in a deep slumber? The lightning tribulation descended with a shrill cry. Jun Moxie buried his head and snored away on a deck chair that he got from somewhere. Countless lightning struck his head, his body, all his fatal points accurately. But at the same time it hit its target, it vanished bizarrely. Until the entire lightning tribulation was over, that deck chair beneath Jun Moxie's bum remained as new as it started, with not the smallest traces of being charred. What did this mean? It meant that all the lightning tribulation did not transfer onto the deck chair and was easily digested by young Master Jun completely, with not a single bit leaking out. Was this possible? There had never been such a situation in all of history. But this impossible thing happened right before everyone's eyes. As everyone stared on as if they had seen a ghost, young Master Jun finally slowly stopped snoring and stretched his back. Sitting up from the chair, he yawned, in a half-awake state, and rubbed his eyes. What a great sleep! How comfortable! Then, he suddenly raised his head and looked at the clear skies. He clicked his tongue a little unsatisfactorily. The lightning tribulation is over? Just like this? Just like this? This sentence made everyone who had gone through tribulations develop the urge to faint. Everyone felt like hitting their heads against the wall. This is too sick. What is this? Going through a tribulation in such a bizarre manner. And it actually worked. Recalling that treacherous experience when they went through tribulations, experiencing that immense pain with 10 layers of skin peeling off from their bodies, comparing it to this fellow who woke up from his sleep, aside from some wrinkled clothing. His face looked full of vigor and spirit. The difference is too big, isn't it? They really did not have the face to live anymore. Calling the strange races freaks, the greatest freak is obviously this Jun Moxie. He is too freaky. There's no other description. It makes everyone speechless. When everyone raised this question, Jun Moxie replied in an extremely annoying tone. What is there to question about this? It is simply a matter of character. I have always been of good character, so the heavens will naturally be kinder and more considerate. This is a matter of character. You can only wish for it. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1196. Wind. Come. What? Aren't you pointing at our noses and saying that all of us have poor character? This fellow is pretty good at insulting others indirectly. But you are offending a group of people with one statement alone. You'll incur the wrath of the masses. Instantly, everyone turned agitated and voiced out their protest. Your character is considered good? If someone like you is considered to have good character, then everyone else in the world would be considered saints. Gu Han glared at Jun Moxie, as he said through gritted teeth. Do you brat know what the meaning of character is? Character is something that is very profound. I can't be bothered to waste my saliva and explain it to you. Jun Moxie shook his head arrogantly and sat on the deck chair. It rose into the air effortlessly and floated into Tian Fei's base. I dare to bet that you do not know what character is. Gu Han hollered loudly, his spit splattering everywhere. Then, he went back to his meditation sulkily. This was too demoralizing. He had spent 1,000 years to advance from a saint venerable to a third-level saint monarch, countless of near-death experiences. Countless of close brushes with death. Countless of narrowly escaping death. But this brat was just of saint venerable cultivation a few days ago. After coming out a few days later, he went through his lightning tribulation fast asleep. And I'm no longer able to see his cultivation. That only means one thing, that this lad's current cultivation has already surpassed mine. How could there be such an easy and effortless way to advance? Aside from disbelief, Gu Han felt extremely aggravated. Sleep. Sleep. Let's sleep first. To ease and soothe the emotions first. At least, if I don't see it, I wouldn't be irritated by it. Turns out this world also has the existence of Q mentality 1. However, old Saint Monarch Gu was destined to be disappointed. Because throughout the entire night, without stopping, the heaven-earth spiritual chi was constantly turbulent. It'd really be strange if anyone was really able to sleep. Trying to change their mood would be a bigger joke. And the most absurd thing was that when dawn broke, the horizon had just begun to show signs of reddish hues. An unusually dense and heavy pressure from heaven and earth came weighing down, causing Gu Han, who had entered a state of meditation, to jump out in shock. He looked at the horizon in fear, both his eyeballs about to pop from their sockets. The pillar of heaven's mountains had already collapsed. Could the heaven also be collapsing? How could there be such an immense and overwhelming spiritual pressure? Even the might of a saint monarch's lightning tribulation cannot compare to the level of intensity. Gu Han was a third-level saint monarch and had the opportunity to witness young Master Jun go through his lightning tribulation, so he could analyze the level of lightning tribulation a fourth-level saint monarch's lightning tribulation would be at, but this spiritual pressure was at least 10-folds of that. What was going on? How could there be such a terrifying existence in the world? Suddenly, an odd thought flashed across Gu Han's mind. Don't tell me it's. Everyone from the three holy lands looked at the dark clouds that were gradually gathering in the skies, all of them feeling a sense of panic and astonishment. Tribulation clouds. Countless of tribulation clouds. Endless, infinite tribulation clouds. Densely packed, layer upon layer. covering the earth and hiding the skies. Groups and groups of them, covering up the entire sky that had just showed some color. Individual cloud eyes began to gradually take form in the swirling clouds. Observing the ant-like humans on the ground. What is going on? Gu Han leaped to his feet, waving his hands in a craze as he yelled. What the feck is going on? To think that it turned out to be the possibility that he was thinking of. The thing that should not be happening right now. It is truly untimely. Old Gu completely lost his composure. He could not be blamed for reacting like this. This matter was truly too absurd. There were countless of tribulation eyes in the skies. As if there were 10,000s of them. The dark clouds continued to gather, swirling in layers, practically reaching the top of their heads. With all of Gu Han's 3,000 years of experience, he had never encountered a situation like this. Going through tribulation had always been an individual's matter. In all of history, it was also very rare for two people to go through tribulations together. Even more so, there has practically never been an instance of numerous people going through it together. The reason why it practically never happened before was because thousands of years ago, there was a lord of a mighty force who, to ensure that his own son could go through his heavenly tribulation safely, arranged for numerous experts to bear the tribulation for his son. But no one expected that a lightning tribulation that was meant for a venerable, due to someone's interference, caused the might of the lightning tribulation to become even more powerful and difficult to bear. Ultimately, that powerful lord, along with the powerful force he set up, died in that lightning tribulation. If it was only one person's lightning tribulation, no matter what sort of realm he attained, even if it was 9 nether first young master personally going through his tribulation, it may not be of such overwhelming intensity. The current situation was obviously not merely the lightning tribulation of 1 or 2 people. At least, there are a few hundreds or thousands of people going through their tribulation at the same time. The most obvious evidence was in the sky. Those countless, individual, sinister cloud eyes were the best proof. Heavenly tribulation, lightning tribulation, no matter how strong or weak, every individual was limited to one. Putting aside his astonishment, Gu Han tried to rise up to observe the surroundings, hoping to find a safer place to settle down in. The might of this lightning tribulation was so shocking. The scope of its attack will definitely not be small. If those 3 holy lands got implicated in this, then that'll really be a wrongful death. But he had just rose 5 zhang when he suddenly groaned and was pushed back down by the immense spiritual pressure. The might of 10,000s of heavenly tribulation repressed a saint monarch from leaping up. Now, Gu Han was truly shocked. These heavenly tribulation already had such a terrifying might before descending, if it truly came striking down. Not taking into account those who were going through the tribulation, even bystanders like himself may not be able to make it through this tribulation alive. The area covered by this lightning tribulation would definitely destroy the entire pillar of heaven's mountains had it not collapsed prior. The people gathered here were the last bit of forces the Xian continent could bring out to resist the strange races. If they were all wiped out in this, then the Xian continent was really doomed. Gu Han instantly fell into despair, hammering away at his chest anxiously and sighing non-stop, completely losing all of his manners and conduct. Old Gu, look over there. Mo Wu Dao sat on the ground and struggled to stretch his hand out to point in the direction of Tianfa Forest's army camp. Gu Han may be hammering away at his chest and sighing, but aside from him, no one else from the 3 holy lands could stand up straight. Even great Lord Mo Wu Dao with his venerable cultivation was in dire straits, completely losing his usual demeanor before this terrifying heavenly might. All of them sat on their bums on the ground. You were considered to have significant cultivation if you weren't pressed flat into the ground. Gu Han twisted his head only to see all the warriors of Tian Fa Forest huddled together. All of them closing their eyes and sitting cross-legged with a solemn look on their faces. As if they were waiting for the arrival of something. Don't tell me they're the ones who caused this. Gu Han was stunned. Before it all turned into rage. Bastard. Nonsense. Who goes through a heavenly tribulation like this? You're clearly toying with your lives. Huddling together. Are you waiting to be fried by the heavenly tribulation? Do they really plan to replay that tragedy from 1,000 years ago? And, from the looks of the situation, it seems like they've all broken through. But how is this possible? Everyone's cultivation is different. How could they all go through their tribulation at the same time? Could it be that they had all broken through just overnight? Cheng Yin Zhao's cultivation is not considered powerful amongst this group of people. He was lying slanted on the ground as disbelief filled his eyes. The skies suddenly turned black. As if night had arrived again. All the tribulation clouds came pressing down at the same time. Densely packed flashes of lightning streaked amidst the layers of dark clouds, buzzing loudly, like dragging a blunt blade on a human bone, slowly sawing away. Gu Han's goosebumps raised. He was the only person who could still move to a certain extent, and was the only person who had a chance of escaping, but right now, he had completely fallen apart. His faith had crumbled. Everything he had protected his whole life was about to crumble. Just at this moment, a white figure slowly rose in the air and stood several zhang above the Tian Fa warriors. He no longer moved and stayed motionless, waiting quietly in the air, standing silently in his pristine white robes. There was not a single bit of breeze in the entire sky at this moment. It was so still, like a painting. Aside from the flashes of lightning, there were no other movement. Jun Moxie. How can he still move? And fly? Gu Han glared, but as he glared, he couldn't comprehend it anymore. He could at most move to a certain extent, even if Jun Moxie had already surpassed himself. He couldn't be that much more powerful, right? Could there be another possibility in this matter? Under everyone's scrutiny, young Master Jun raised his head. His black hair began to rise. He stretched out his arms and gestured as if he was hugging someone. Hugging at the skies. Wind, come. His voice suddenly rang out dramatically, as if he were reciting an ancient chant. The corner of Gu Han's lips twitched. This young Master Jun is really trying too hard at pretending and showing off. Wind, come. Wind, come, your head. Who do you think you are? It'll come just because you say so. Did you really think you are an immortal? Still, wind. Come. Are you going to go, rain? Come, the next moment, ah. But when the next moment arrived, Gu Han's eyes widened. They almost fell out of their sockets, because, right after young Master Jun said that, the still and dense air, really, had wind. There was really wind. A small wind began to blow. Blowing at Jun Moxie's black hair, making his robes flutter along in the wind. At this moment, young Master Jun truly could be described, fluttering like a celestial being. A classic celestial being fluttering in the breeze. The wind really came. Gu Han choked and instantly turned into stone. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1197. Going through tribulation collectively. His mind also instantly short-circuited. It really came. One command of his. And the wind actually really listened to his command? Gu Han shook his head violently, as if trying to shake off this unrealistic hallucination. Perhaps it's a coincidence. It's early in the morning, It's no big deal for some breeze. It definitely must be a coincidence. But the next moment, Jun Moxie wrinkled his brows, seemingly unsatisfied, then he waved his hands dramatically and said, "The wind is too weak. Stronger. A bit stronger." Whoosh, the gentle breeze instantly turned into a gust of wind, instantly. The flags flapped in the wind noisily. Stronger. Stronger. More. Finally, as if under Jun Moxie's repeated urging, the wind got louder and turned into a hurricane. At least, a grade 9 hurricane. Shrieking loudly, like an ancient giant beast swirling above in the air, ripping away at the skies. Guhan's jaw dropped, staring at Jun Moxie, who was standing steadily in the violent winds. "Ah!" he cried before plummeting head first onto the ground. This is definitely not a coincidence anymore, but how can all of this be explained? I get it. I must be dreaming. Since it is a dream, then I better continue sleeping. Everything before his eyes was truly too unreal. But the next moment, a thunderous noise woke him completely. The lightning tribulation officially began. Guhan finally couldn't resist struggling to jump back up and glance over, only to see the first bolt of lightning snake its way out of the clouds, heading straight for the ground. This is only like the splendor displayed by a small pearl. Young Master Jun clicked his tongue condescendingly, in a haughty and arrogant manner. Then, he pointed his right hand up and commanded, "Keep." Whoosh, the lightning that descended vanished just like that. Completely disappeared. Gulp. Everyone from 3 holy lands who witnessed this scene swallowed their saliva, then they all rubbed their eyes uniformly. I must have seen wrongly. I have been under too much fucking stress during this period of time to even start hallucinating. But the first time may be an hallucination. What about the second? And the nth time? The lightning tribulation in the sky also seemed to be enraged by young Master Jun's arrogance. Raining lightning bolts down like a torrential rain, the entire sky was lit up by the flashes of lightning. Young Master Jun did not stop, constantly prancing about, leaping left and right mid-air that he even deliberately pinched his fingers effeminately and sang, "Keep, feck. Keep. 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 Keep for this daddy. Keep, 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 keep." The skies continued to rumble and crackle. The sockets of everyone on the ground was spasming, their eyes about to suffer cramps. Finally, someone could no longer endure this sort of mental impact and foamed at the mouth, landing onto the ground with a plop. This was too demoralizing. And too disgusting. Guhan looked at that shameless figure in the sky and couldn't help but feel the urge to faint and vomit. You're capable. You're amazing. You are extraordinary. I get it. But you also don't need to show it off like this. Ah. Aren't you tired prancing about? I'm tired from watching. To be honest, young Master Jun was indeed a little tired. There was a price for showing off. Although young Master Jun was more than willing to show off like this. But it could not be endless awe. But the collective heavenly tribulation this time seemed to be endless. Of course, there were many benefits of a lightning tribulation that lasted like this. Under such an enormous heavenly tribulation, before it completely dissipated, the strange races definitely would not dare to act at all, but young Master Jun was too exhausted from showing off, his movements greatly reduced. Jun Moxie's intention was none other than to allow numerous warriors to advance simultaneously, displaying his divine miracles that it would definitely boost the morale and confidence of everyone. This was definitely a good idea and had obtained considerable effects. In face of the impending war, A freak like young Master Jun who could easily resist the heavenly tribulation appearing on their side, and a heavenly tribulation of this tremendous scale. All on his own, what sort of power and strength was required to do this? With this sort of leader around, what war could they not win? The effects proved to be great and exceeded expectations. Not only the TNFA, but even the experts from the three holy lands who were feeling pessimistic also gained a significant amount of hope from this. But then, the duration of this tribulation was indeed a little too long. To the point that young Master Jun was getting a little impatient. Although it was easy and it felt great acting cool and showing off a couple of times, but the moment was done too many times, showing off and acting cool turned into a clown's performance. Maintaining this for over 2 hours, young Master Jun had exhausted himself from showing off. Enough of that performance. Dang it. So be it that I'm not the one in charge of this matter anyway. It's the Hongjun Pagoda that is automatically absorbing the lightning. What has it got to do with me? I'm actually just an ornament. He was actually a display from start to end. In fact, after he had given everyone pills and ensured that everyone would be breaking through, there was basically nothing else that concerned him anymore. After they broke through, the moment their auras seeped out, Hongjun Pagoda had already made the preparations. After ensuring everyone successfully advanced, the Hongjun Pagoda automatically set up a protective layer over everyone's heads, aside from young Master Jun. No one else could see or detect it. In fact, Jun Moxie also couldn't see it, but he could distinctly sense it. Probably because the number of people going through the tribulation this time was truly too much this time, and everyone was of considerable level, since when did Hongjun Pagoda ever make any preparations? Watching the Hongjun Pagoda absorb the energy of the heavenly tribulation so hungrily, Jun Moxie was also baffled. What did this mysterious Hongjun Pagoda want so much power of lightning for? Could it purely be for energy? It shouldn't be. The heaven-earth spiritual chi is also a form of energy. But I've never seen it absorb such great amounts before. In the past, it only helped him bear the lightning tribulations. Now, it had gotten to the point of it not letting go of the tiniest bit of lightning. This was indeed a little odd. Jun Moxie was also fatigued. Showing off required great amounts of energy. He decided to sit down lazily in the air, looking at the sky and earth helplessly, boredom written all over his face. But in the eyes of the three holy lands, it became. What is this scoundrel trying to say? Could it be that he advanced again because he absorbed vast amounts of the power of lightning? He still needed to do some actions earlier, but now, he can absorb it directly, much more easily compared to just now. Another long while passed, and young Master Jun still felt tired from sitting. So he simply laid down. You can only sleep and rest properly when you lie down, isn't it? It did not take long for his rhythmic snoring to ring out. Unbelievable. He fell asleep. He actually fell asleep again. Under these ear-shattering claps of thunder, these tens of thousands of lightning, he actually fell asleep. How bold is his mind? Ah! It wasn't about his boldness, but mainly because young Master Jun was indeed too tired after 3 days of advancing without break, then going through his own tribulation, then dealing with the commotion from the three holy lands, then aiding all of TNFA and the evil Monarch Manor's members to break through all of this without a single pause. He was kept busy the entire time. When everyone's tribulation arrived, young Master Jun even wanted to show off and pranced about. If he wasn't exhausted, it'd be a miracle. Anyone needed to sleep and rest under this sort of weariness. Who cared about the thunder and lightning? The rumbling in the skies continued on for 3 days and 3 nights, driving all of the three holy lands to the brink of insanity. Ignoring this sort of noise was impossible. This was the sound of the heavenly tribulation. Ah! The mightiest, prestigious and dignified sound in the world. And most importantly, Even if you stuffed your ear, you'd still hear it. But by the third day, everyone became more immune to it. No big deal. Just get used to it, since it isn't going to land. Let's just do whatever we must do. As the duration of the tribulation slowly passes, its might also weakens. Everyone gradually got used to it and was not as pathetic as before. As to young Master Jun, he had truly gotten a good rest in these 3 days and nights. Sleeping and waking up. Waking up and going to sleep. It was extremely boring. Anyone could move. But he absolutely must not. Why? He had placed himself in the most central position. The Hongjun Pagoda naturally followed suit, but the moment they were in this spot, he could not move until the heavenly tribulation was over. He could prance about in his spot, but he must not exceed the boundaries of 1 meter. The moment he left this position, the heavenly tribulation would not follow young Master Jun but instead head down directly and land on the heads of those who were really going through tribulation. So Jun Moxie mustn't move no matter what. He also couldn't duck into the Hongjun Pagoda. The Hongjun Pagoda was gorging itself out currently. He wouldn't go in now even if it killed him. So he could only wait. Jun Moxie was feeling a little depressed. This was the equivalent to setting up a stage show with the intentions to perform a couple of lines to fan the atmosphere before calling it off, only realizing that the show could not be called off after he started and him, the only lead, could not come off the stage either. Even if he didn't perform anymore, he still couldn't go off stage. Just staying up there for everyone to admire. How could young Master Jun not feel frustrated when being caught in this sort of awkward situation? But no matter how frustrating, there was nothing he could do but wait until the heavenly tribulation dissipated on its own. He was reaping what he had sown, thousands of people going through the tribulation collectively at the same time and place. This was definitely something unprecedented, and will not be surpassed. The combined might of this enormous heavenly tribulation cannot be described by terrifying alone. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1198. 1,000 years of hegemony. An eternity of rule. This matter was definitely unprecedented, but might not necessarily remain unsurpassed. Young Master Jun still had the capability to create a bigger scene, but with this sort of awkwardness experienced today, young Master Jun wouldn't do it again even if it killed him. As to the others, even if they had this sort of capability and resource, they may not be as willing as young Master Jun to be so wasteful about it. So the grand occasion today was unprecedented, unsurpassable, and difficult to occur again. 3 days later, this tremendous, noisy heavenly tribulation finally announced its end. Jun Moxie was bored to death staying up there, and all his bones were aching the instant the heavenly tribulation ended. He ducked into the Hongjun Pagoda with a whoosh, showering, sleeping, or even meeting the ladies in private. Any one of it was fine. Either way, he just didn't show his face again. The heavenly tribulation had dissipated, but everyone's ears remained ringing with the sound of thunder a good while. The thundering had gone on for 3 days and nights consecutively, and it was no ordinary lightning and thunder, but a heavenly tribulation even though everyone got used to it. Young Master Jun's exhibition of his skills naturally stirred many discussions. It was not only the 3 holy lands, but even Tianfa warriors were impressed with their brother-in-law. They all still found it impressive that they managed to go through the heavenly tribulation so safely. They gathered in groups to share their praises. Other things may not be real, but the increase in strength after this round of tribulation could not be faked. Feeling the immense amount of power in their bodies, everyone felt a sense of contentment. At this moment, their desire to battle surged greatly. What are the strange races? If they dare to come, we'll kill all of them. As to the strange races, after waiting for 3 days, they finally made their move. After all, this sort of grand heavenly tribulation was not something common to see. Witnessing and experiencing Jun Moxie's otherworldly divineness, Gu Han, the number one person of the Holy Lands, couldn't help but feel a sincere sense of shame. This was not something ordinary humans are capable of. Perhaps only the godly prodigies in legends will have this sort of capabilities. But it's a pity that Holy Land and Jun Moxie had been enemies for a long time, from start to end, and now, with Xia Changtian and the rest causing the sacrifice of Tian Fa's warriors, the enmity between both sides are already at the point beyond reconciliation. Otherwise, with just Jun Moxie's skills, how many losses would he be able to help Holy Land salvage? How many people can no longer fear the dangers of a lightning tribulation? We have truly made an unwise move. Just as Gu Han was feeling a sense of loss and sighed, there was a series of movement in the air, causing it to be unstable. This sudden fluctuation in the air was laced with a feeling of extreme danger. Gu Han's eyes glinted and hollered. "Who comes?" "A horse." Odd voice cackled from the air. As expected of Gu Han, this sort of exceptional senses is truly incomparable. "Old friend. It has been another 500 years, how have you been?" Gu Han's pupils constricted. "So it was you?" "Ha ha ha, of course it's me. Who else can it be?" Another series of peculiar fluctuation in the air. Slowly, all the air also began to behave in the same manner. It was impossible to tell where this person was hiding. A big matter like the collapse of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains was something we've been pining for a long time. We've been waiting for 10,000 years. Today, the Pillar of Heaven's mountains has collapsed, which also officially announced the fall of the Xian continent and the three Holy Lands. Brother Gu Han, we've known each other for a while. I really can't bear to watch a legend of his own generation to fall into ruins like this. There's a saying in the Xian continent that goes, "A wise man submits to circumstances." Don't tell me that you still can't tell where this situation is heading. That odd voice remained faint and indiscernible. Bullshit. Where is the situation heading? Gu Han yelled furiously. If you strange races dare to come in, you are destined to forget about going back alive. This is where the real situation is heading. AI. That voice sighed disappointedly and said melancholically, "Brother Gu Han, you are still the same as our first meeting 3,000 years ago, but a pity is that your luck is no longer as good as before anymore." He let out a deep sigh. "Gu Han, do you still remember that before the establishment of the battlefield of the war for seizing the heavens, back then, at the Pillar of Heaven's mountains, there was a stone tablet? Perhaps other people may not know or recall what was written on it, but you should know it, right?" Stone tablet? Gu Han's face was shocked. Stone tablet. The person Gu Han did not exist at the time that the voice spoke of. It was indeed a long time ago. And not many people knew. Even if they knew, they may not remember. But in the most ancient secret records in the Heaven Saint Palace, it was once recorded down, there once stood a stone tablet on the Pillar of Heaven's mountains. That stone tablet was erected by the number one person of Xian, the 9 Nether First Young Master. Personally, what was written on it was a prophecy by the 9 Nether First Young Master, but since the accidental collapse of half of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains 8,000 years ago, that stone tablet also went missing. That person concealed in the void let out a soft sigh and said, "You humans really forget about your roots. To think that no one is able to remember such an important matter. Even the head of the Heaven Saint Palace has also allowed it to slip from his mind. How truly lamentable. Nonsense. How could I forget? Of course I remember, but I have no duty to let you hear it." Gu Han snapped, recalling what was written on that stone tablet. He couldn't help but let out a heartfelt sigh. Could all of this really be the will of the heavens? Everything was predestined? Ha ha ha. The air quaked, that eerie voice recited slowly. The 9 illusory quicksand turns into emptiness in the wind. The pillar of heaven's mountain collapses and both sides contend for supremacy. The demise of the 3 holy land. Turning into emptiness. Shattering like a dream. Thousands years of hegemony. By the evil skills of 10,000 years. When the voice recited this inscription, it was clear that he was calm and composed, and with a tinge of respect in his tone. Gu Han's face darkened. Indeed, this was the content written in the secret records of Heaven's Saint Palace. He never imagined that the strange races would also know of it. Gu Han, you need not be too astonished that I may have known of the contents for a long time, but I only fully understood the meaning of it only now. That person continued to speak slowly. Of course, I had already known about the matter with the 9 illusory quicksand 3,000 years ago. What? Gu Han widened his eyes. You know? How did you know? This is not important. And is not the main point. What is truly important is the meaning of what was written on the tablet. Do you understand it? That voice chuckled softly. Gu Han, I believe that you would be able to understand it with your intelligence. Gu Han broke out in perspiration, his voice turning hoarse. Chuangshang Beidao. You don't need to be gleeful because of this. Things may not be as you think. Anything is possible. Everything has yet to be set into stone yet. The person speaking was the current leader of the strange races, also the #1 expert of the strange races. Chuangshang Beidao. He could be considered old acquaintances with Gu Han. The past 3,000 years of war for seizing the heavens had always took place under the control and management of Gu Han and Chuangshang Beidao. That voice chuckled. This time, with 2 different voices chuckling mockingly. One was chuckled eerily, while the other was a giggle. The 9 illusory quicksand turns into emptiness in the wind. What this is describing is very simple. The 9 illusory quicksand that supported the pillar of heaven's mountains for 10,000 years vanished due to some reason. So the pillar of heaven's mountains collapsed. Chuangshang Beidao chuckled as he patiently explained. The pillar of heaven's mountain collapses and both sides contend for supremacy. You wouldn't need me to explain this, right? As to the demise of 3 holy land, turning into emptiness, it's none other than to say that the 3 holy lands are about to be doomed. Chuangshang Beidao sneered gleefully. As to shattering like a dream, what I interpreted was that the continent that the 3 holy lands have been protecting for 10,000 years was merely a long dream. Since it is a dream, you'll have to wake up sooner or later. Nonsense. Gu Han bellowed, suddenly pouncing towards the air in a flash. A series of boom rang out, as if someone had exchanged a few blows with Gu Han. Then, the air began to fluctuate intensely again. Gu Han drifted back onto the ground, his eyes staring at the air, warily. Not bad. Looks like you already can locate where I am, but this is still not enough. The voice in the air changed and seemed to be coming from all directions. Gu Han laughed. Indeed. It is indeed still not enough. The moment the other party changed their hiding techniques, Gu Han could no longer find him. Gu Han undoubtedly had the strongest cultivation in the 3 holy lands, but he didn't have the all-seeing eye like Qiao Ying, so he was unable to see past the strange race's concealing techniques. What follows is that last line. Chuangshang Beidao rejoiced. Gu Han, I have to say, it is truly pleasing to tease you once every 500 years like this. I really like this feeling and will never get sick of it. Gu Han scoffed coldly. But it's a pity that every time we battle, You always flee the fastest. If there comes a time where you behave uprightly like a human, perhaps I'll hold you in better regards. Unfortunately, you still do not have the rights to make me do that. Chuangshang Beidao cackled. Then, the last sentence. Thousands years of hegemony. By the evil skills of 10,000 years. Ha ha ha. This is clearly saying that we, the Divine Sun clan, will be able to dominate the continent for 10,000 years. He cackled gleefully. You humans always called us evil existences. Our skills are naturally considered evil skills. Ha! This evil skills of 10,000 years is definitely referring to the skills we use. We are more than willing to acknowledge this. There is definitely no mistake. Don't tell me that all you righteous scoundrels would be willing to say that your Xian skills are evil. Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1199. Divine Sword's Might. His explanation was completely irrefutable. Even Gu Han was guessing that was the case, but how could he admit it? This prophecy came from the ancestor of your Xian skills, the Nine Nether First Young Master. Chuangshang Beidao used his female voice and mocked disdainfully. I am full of respect for this old ancestor of yours. From start to end, it has always been the case that in fact, all of us revere at this grand existence that we always only acknowledge the strong, those who are truly powerful. Conversely, all you humans of the continent, the so-called superior human beings, how many of you genuinely admire the Nine Nether First Young Master? Gu Han's body jerked and he couldn't help but stumble back, his entire face turning pale. You all cultivate the skills he imparted, used his methods to turn stronger, but from beginning to end, you refuse to admit his position as your Grandmaster. At the very least, refuse to respect the Nine Nether First Young Master like an ancestor. Why is this so? I have never been able to understand this. The continent has a saying, deceiving your master and destroying your ancestors. I wonder if your actions can be counted as such? Or perhaps I have misunderstood this saying of yours? Gu Han jerked hearing this, then he froze before perspiring profusely. Indeed, the Nine Nether First Young Master conquered the entire Xian continent, and the entire continent adopted the skills of the Nine Nether First Young Master. This was an achievement that lasted till now, but in the current Xian continent, how many people could really respect the Nine Nether First Young Master like their own ancestors? Deceiving your master and destroying your ancestors may be a little harsh, but it was not far from the truth. There was not a single ancestral hall worshipping the Nine Nether First Young Master in the entire continent. It was also amusing, the Nine Nether First Young Master left so many legends in the continent, but there was not a single ancestral temple worshipping him. The reason was simple. The Nine Nether First Young Master may be powerful and was unsurpassable, but he was ultimately someone from another world. He would forever be a foreigner on Xian soil. He was a conqueror, and this continent was what he conquered. This was a contradiction that would never be resolved. Thus, as long as the Nine Nether First Young Master existed, the continent would still be under his rule, but the moment he was gone, everything also followed suit. There won't be a person who constantly reminded the descendants that in this world, there still exists someone who had conquered our continent. Aside from being mentioned when imparting Xian skills, there were not many people who know of the words Nine Nether First Young Master in the entire Xian continent. Is it not the case? The female voice of Chuangshang Beidao mocked. On our side, no matter who it is, as long as they are strong, they will be respected, and respected thoroughly. While you guys cultivate the skills of the Nine Nether First Young Master, but use it to kill his juniors from the same hometown, that we will not do something like this, but you guys did it and without the slightest sense of guilt that I don't know or understand. Is this how you repay a debt of gratitude? Gu Han's face turned green as he snapped. Nonsense. What do you guys know? But he was thinking that the strange races had never come to the continent before. How did they know of all these matters? Even if there was a spy, they will definitely not be able to pass the information. Ah. We only know that you continent people are ungrateful, deceiving your master and forgetting your roots. That is good enough. We have come forth to annihilate you and serve out heaven's justice. Keep farting your bullshit. Gu Han finally exploded. Chuangshang Beidao. Show yourself if you have the guts. Fight me to death. Fight you to death? No. 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 It is still not the time yet. Chuangshang Beidao's voice switched again. Back to that eerie male voice. I came forth today merely to take a look. Purely out of curiosity. Nothing else. He suddenly paused and looked at all the Tianfa and Holy Land soldiers around disdainfully. Gu Han. What was going on? For the appearance of the terrifying might of heaven and earth for the past 3 days? The past 3 days. Not only were the experts over here unable to move, the experts of the strange races were unable to draw near either. Even Chuangshang Beidao himself could only come over after the tribulation was completely over. This matter had caused the panic of all the strange races. So you came for this reason. Gu Han suddenly laughed loudly, finally understanding his purpose for coming. Did you find it terrifying? Hard to fight against? Are you scared? He never expected that he managed to get back on this topic. That's right. This level of heavenly might is indeed terrifying, that I believe it is undeniable, which is why I came to ask why this sort of thing would happen. Chuangshang Beidao did not deny it. He was indeed a little afraid that he had come purely for this matter. If one person had triggered a tribulation of that intensity, then there was nothing but a one-sided massacre that awaited the strange races. If they faced him, they might as well wait patiently for the next opportunity. The strange races had already gotten used to waiting for 10,000s of years. Do you really wish to know? Gu Han cackled. Nonsense. If I didn't want to know, why would I make such a long trip to find you? Did you really think that I missed you so much? Chuangshang Beidao snapped impatiently. Since you wish to know so badly, I shall not tell you. Gu Han suddenly broke out in guffaws. Idiot. Chuangshang Beidao was completely enraged that he had teased Gu Han earlier. Now, the tables had turned and he was toyed with by Gu Han instead. How could he not be angry? His female voice crushed and shrieked, about to strike. But for some reason, the attack didn't come. The air reverberated violently. Then, Chuangshang Beidao's voice turned solemn. Was there someone going through a tribulation? Gu Han scoffed. Can't you tell? The flow of the air froze. As if Chuangshang Beidao had calmed down. Then, it suddenly swirled with greater intensity, fluctuating with great might. Gu Han. We shall meet again. Leave the outcome of the battlefield to our strategies. Chuangshang Beidao said coldly. Whoosh! A swirl of wind shot into the skies and formed a huge hurricane that stretched 100 zhangs. Imposing, tyrannical, and unimaginable. But when he passed Tianfa's troops, he still couldn't help but let out genuine praise. Such valiant Tianfa warriors. I believe they're the ones who caused the losses a few days ago. Since from the I really do not know what other force would be able to obtain the glorious battle results of a complete victory with such a huge disparity in numbers. With 1 to 30 or more. Then, he saw Mei Shuayan, who was standing in front of the army and watching the air intently. He exclaimed, "What a gorgeous lady!" Mei Shuayan scoffed and waved her hand. The blood of yellow flame came whooshing out, its sword light shooting into the heavens. In the air, There was a cry of surprise and the sound of weapons clashing. The blood of yellow flame cried angrily, suddenly shining brightly, instantly forming a screen of light in the air. The curtain of light swirled and zigzagged, forming a sword mountain in the air. The sword chi was cold and eerie, and everyone on the ground felt chills. Excellent sword! Both of Chuangshang Beidao's voices exclaimed in unison, revealing their caution and joy. Then, with the loud cry of a deep and a sharp pitch, a figure appeared in the sky and vanished with a flash. The hurricane swirled into the skies and vanished without a trace. It only left a lingering sentence. Gu Han. 3 days later. Watch me officially break through your defense directly. Defeat you with my own hands. Make all of Xian sincerely convinced and ready to concede. Break through your defense directly. Defeat you with my own hands. This number 1 expert of the strange races was truly full of heroic spirit. The blood of yellow flame cried as its tip trembled, channeling all of its sword chi, about to chase after him. Come back. Mei Shuayan immediately gave the command and stretched her hand. The blood of yellow flame cried in the air. Before descending unwillingly, it sat on Mei Shuayan's hand silently, its entire body glowing, as if it was really unwilling to concede and reluctant. A powerful, delicious nourishment like that slipped away right under its nose. The blood of yellow flame was really disappointed. Why can't he just let me have a good meal? If I absorb this two-headed freak completely, then how much power will I gain? The blood of yellow flame began to fantasize about it, constantly releasing a buzzing sound. Mei Shuayan thought it was because his thirst for battle had yet to fade, but she never imagined that this was blood of yellow flame drooling greedily. Like a human drooling and swallowing their saliva when they saw delicious food, it was time to feast. Watching this strong opponent depart, Gu Han couldn't help but let out a deep sigh. The other party's words lingered in his ears. Could it be that the Xian continent was really going to be done for this time? Break through your defense directly. Defeat you with my own hands. Gu Han mumbled to himself. Is this a letter of challenge? Or is it a feint attack to mislead us? No matter which one it is, this battle is extraordinarily treacherous. Recalling that excellent sword that Chuangshang Beidao had said before he left, Ji Han couldn't help but also repeat it, excellent sword. He glanced at Mei Shuayan, finally noticing that something was amiss. Could it be that this sword attacks of its own accord and is not controlled by someone? If this were not the case, how could Mei Shuayan stop Chuangshang Beidao and be on par with Chuangshang Beidao while controlling the sword from such a great distance? With this thought, Gu Han's heart suddenly shivered. Just a sword alone is able to hold off Chuangshang Beidao, a third-level Saint Monarch? Then isn't this sword a divine sword, not just in name only? Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1200. Swords and bows drawn, fully prepared for war. In that moment, Gu Han had, for some reason, begun to suddenly miss young Master Jun. Jun Moxie had disappeared at this extremely crucial timing, missing the meet of the peak experts of the two sides. Naturally, he also didn't make it to hear the prophecy made 10,000 years ago, as well as that arrogant explanation by the strange races. This was actually quite an understandable matter. In these few days, young Master Jun had truly been quite exhausted. Before this, he had faced a lightning tribulation. And it was an extremely huge lightning tribulation that lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. Even if he had his strange methods to perfectly handle the lightning tribulation, he still needed to focus on the task, not daring to be careless in the slightest. If even a few bolts of lightning got past him, it would result in the deaths of many. After 3 full days of concentration, he naturally ran off to find a place to rest first. If Jun Moxie had been present when Chuangshang Beidao came, what would he do? With his personality, he certainly wouldn't let that strange race's fellow leave after gaining an advantage, right? At the very least, he wouldn't let him leave in such a carefree manner. Gu Han believed that with Jun Moxie's poisonous tongue that was unrivaled under the heavens, even if he couldn't beat this fellow up until he spat out blood and escaped, he would at least anger the latter so much that he would vomit out a mouthful of blood. No matter what, he would still have to vomit blood before leaving. As this thought fleeted through his head, Gu Han could not help but smile lightly. His mood that had been at the bottom of the abyss also began to rise. Jun Moxie had always been a person that could bring about miracles. Right now, we're at least standing on the same side that I hope that he can once again create a miracle, bringing us out of this inescapable nightmare. As soon as Chuangshang Beidao left, Mei Shuayan similarly sensed that the strange race's forces would probably follow soon, and she also began to make the preparations. After Jun Moxie once again upgraded the strength of his people once more with great costs, the strength of Tian Fa Forest and Evil Monarch Manor had reached a thoroughly new peak. As the Saint Venerable Realm had high requirements for aptitude and cultivation, less than 20 people managed to barely squeezed into that realm. As for Saint Monarch, only Mei Shuayan managed to reach it. However, she broke all the way to the 2nd level of Saint Monarch in one go, and she was not far off from a 3rd level Saint Monarch like Gu Han. The most amazing thing was that in the last 10,000 years, no Xian beasts of Tian Fa had ever managed to reach the Saint Monarch realm, making Mei Shuayan truly the first Saint Monarch and #1 expert of all the Xian beasts. That was the peak military strength. Although it was rather shocking, it was still not to the point of being horrifying. The truly astonishing numbers belonged to the middle to high-level military strength. All of the Tian Fa Xian beasts and Evil Monarch Manor experts who came this time had reached the Saint Emperor realm. There were no exceptions, every single one. Even Tian Can and DK, who began with the weakest Xian cultivation, had also risen all the way to the Saint Emperor realm, and not only that, they'd relied on their astonishing willpower and their transformed physiques to jump all the way to the 3rd level of Saint Emperor. This kind of ascension speed was truly unprecedented in history. Naturally, the shocking improvement speed of the two also came with a huge price. After all, they were not like Jun Moxie, who had countless magical means. Throughout the entire process, Mei Shuayan had sat beside the two, using her own art of unlocking heaven's fortune's spiritual qi to continuously mend their meridians and bodies. Even with that, the two had walked along the thin line between life and death countless times, tethering just on the edge of their bodies exploding. So although their improvement had been horrifying, quite a considerable amount of hidden injuries had been left behind in their bodies. Before their cultivation and their comprehension reached an appropriate level, they would not be able to advance any further. That would be an extremely slow and long process and required the appropriate fortuitous encounters as well. However, right now, they were true 3rd level Saint Emperors. This was a level that 99% of the people in this world would never reach even in their dreams. It was like ascending to the heavens in one stroke. The most remarkable thing about this was that the two of them who'd gained incredibly shocking power actually still showed no emotion on their faces, apart from the bit of excitement that flickered across their eyes for a moment. There were no other changes. They even used most of their resting time to familiarize themselves with their newfound powers and practice their techniques, striving to get used to their strength as soon as possible. Even the Xian beasts that had lived for several hundred years were not able to match this level of mental strength. This was the quality that Jun Moxie had discovered back then at first glance, an ability to be completely undisturbed either by favor or disgrace. unmoved though the mountains may collapse and crumble, indifferent even in the face of life or death. This was a natural-born quality that belonged only to the best assassins. Around half a day after Chuangshang Beidao left, Bailey Luo Yun and Leng Ao, these two newly advanced Saint Venerables, came to look for Mei Shuayan, bringing along the now Saint Emperor assassins and then disappearing into the trees. They would look for the best spots for assassinations and prepare for the upcoming grand battle. After Solitary Eagle and Feng Wanyun obtained the approval of Mei Shuayan, they also led the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer troops away, advancing 800 li and hiding themselves among the rubble of the fallen Pillar of Heaven's mountains. They would be the hidden sharp blade that could affect the battle with the greatest effect at any moment. At the same time, Solitary Eagle and Feng Wanyun both had the same thought, this entire War 9 under the personal direction of Jun Moxie. The glorious name of the evil monarch must not be trampled into the ground because of them. Whether it was the Xian beasts of Tian Fa or the elite assassins group of evil monarch manor, only the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer troops were the original forces of the Jun family, belonging to Jun Moxie alone. And they, as the force that represents the Jun family, should show their worth in the most dangerous situations. Compared to the brothers of Tian Fa, if death should come, it should be them who sacrificed their lives first. It should be the people of the evil monarch manor to die before others. They were determined to not let their own brothers act as the cannon fodder for them. Jun Moxie was not here right now, but the two of them believed that if Jun Moxie was here, he would not hesitate to make the same choice. That was how comrades were truly supposed to be in a battle. Only when you were fully prepared to block a spear for your comrade would they be willing to risk their own lives for you. If people behaved selfishly in a battle, only caring about saving themselves, then without a question, that person would die the quickest. Because no one would feel that it was worth it to save a person like that with their own lives. An army was only as strong as its weakest link, and when everyone fully relied on and trusted each other with their lives, it would be truly terrifying. This decision by Solitary Eagle and Feng Wanyun had completed the final arrangement of the entire army. Mei Shuayan understood their thoughts, and although she was worried, she did not stop them. This time, anybody could end up having to sacrifice themselves. She could only consider everything in view of the big picture. Even if they had to sacrifice, she had to look at whose sacrifice it was, and what kind of sacrifice had the most value. This value did not refer only to how many enemies one killed or injured, there were also the factors of inspiring and rousing the battling emotions of their own army. And the personal troops of the evil monarch manor was undoubtedly the most suitable choice for this point. So after Mei Shuayan agreed to Solitary Eagle's request, Tiger King Earthcracker, who was beside her, requested to take 3,000 of his most elite warriors from the Tiger tribe, forming the second wave and pushing forward to the front line. Mei Shuayan nodded her head, her expression as calm as water. However, her heart trembled uncontrollably. With her intelligence, how could she not understand? Solitary Eagle and Feng Wanyun had chosen the position where they were most likely to be sacrificed. And Tiger King had also made a similarly innocent request, even if all 300 of his Tiger tribe warriors, including himself, self-detonated and all of them died, they would still do their best to ensure the safe return of Solitary Eagle and their other brothers of the evil monarch manor. Since you can disregard your life for me, I will also do the same for you. Although you belong to the evil monarch manor, and I belong to Tian Fa, although we are Xian beasts and you are humans. In this moment, we are brothers who will share life and death. I can completely trust my back to you. The other Tian Fa beast kings also grasped the limited choices they had right now, urging their subordinates to focus on training, to align their abilities and their new cultivation strength as quickly as possible. Crane King constantly ordered the flying Xian beasts under his command to fly into the sky together and land together at the same time. His sharp eyes watched the long defensive front line. On the ground, there were still many large groups of flying Xian beasts constantly maintaining the position of taking off. Countless stalwart Tian-Fa Xian beast warriors were already seated on their backs. With just a single command, they would instantly take into the sky and rush to their positions, before one could even blink. On the side of the three holy lands, everyone was calming their hearts, adjusting themselves to a peak state. Guhan only had one request: that we must not let the Tian-Fa side look down on our holy lands. Even if all of us die today, we must protect the dignity of the holy lands. Or perhaps, this is the last shred of dignity for us, the experts of the holy lands. It was this last sentence that thoroughly roused the will of the holy lands experts to fight to the death. The entire battlefield sank into a moment of heavy silence. The air was stifling, and everyone's hands were resting on the hilt of their sword. The entire army was ready to fight. Big Bear had also said, with tears running all over his face, before Little Eagle died. He told me very seriously about the main weakness of the strange races: they are not adept at large-scale chaotic battles. Once they entered their stealth state, the strange race's defensive abilities will drop to the lowest possible point. That he said that I must pass this discovery to elder sister and brother-in-law. And this piece of news was indeed highly valued by Mei Shuiyan. This story will be continued to chapter 1201. For those of you who are not subscribed yet, please subscribe. The interesting and best stories will be updated. See you again in the next episode.